Hey guys, this lesson is lesson 109 and our new concept is equivalent fractions. We've talked a little about equivalent fractions before, but basically we know that 1/2 is equal to 2/4 because 2 is half of 4. And that's also equal to 3/6, 4/8, 5/10, and on and on and on. Well, we're going to talk a little bit more about finding equivalent fractions. So if you look at 688, it says equal portions of each circle below have been shaded. We see that different fractions are used to name the shaded portions. So we have all these different circles. We have 1/2, 2/4, 3/6, 4/8, 5/10, and we can see on 688, so you should have your book open so you can see it. You can see that they're all equivalent, they're all equal. The pieces are just different sizes, but we're still shading half of the circle. So these fractions all name the same amount. Different fractions that name the same amount are called equivalent fractions. They're equal to each other. So let's look at example 1. The rectangle on the left has 3 equal parts. We see that 2 parts are shaded, so 2/3 of the figure is shaded. The rectangle on the right has 6 equal parts. How many parts must be shaded so that the same fraction of this rectangle is shaded? So we'll draw these out. So first we had 2/3 of the rectangle. So we need to find out how many of the sixths are going to equal to 2/3. So if we look at it, if we shade 4 of the 6, so this is 2/3. 4 of the 6, once we shade 4 of the 6 parts, that shows an equal amount. Now, it doesn't look as great as it does in the book because I'm not an artist, but you should be looking in your book to be able to see that 2/3 and 4/6 are equal. Let's go ahead and on to example 2. What equivalent fractions are shown at the right? Well, if you look at example 2, the first side we have how many parts? We have 8 parts and 2 are shaded. So that's 2/8. The other side, we have 4 parts and 1 part is shaded. That's 1/4. So 2/8 is equal to 1/4. Now looking at page 689, this is really important. This is a way we can find equivalent fractions without shading or using circles or rectangles. It says, we remember that when we multiply a number by 1, the answer equals the number we multiplied. So 2 times 1 is 2. 1,000 times 1 is 1,000. 2,000 times 1 is 2,000. 1/2 times 1 is 1/2. So, and we also know that there are a lot of ways to write 1, like 2/2, 3/3, 4/4, 5/5, 6/6. Remember, if the numerator and denominator are the same, it equals 1. So we can use these 2 facts to find equivalent fractions. If we multiply a fraction by a fraction named for 1, the product is an equivalent fraction. So for example, 1/2 times 2/2. So now, really quick, when you're multiplying fractions, it's different than adding and subtracting fractions. You actually multiply you multiply the numerators and you multiply the denominators. So 1 times 2 is 2. 2 times 2 is 4. So an equivalent fraction to 1/2 is 2/4. So we multiply it by 1 because 2/2 is equal to 1, and we're going to find an equivalent fraction because anytime we multiply a number by 1, we get the equal number. So if we did if you continue looking at the page, we have 1/2 times 3/3 equals 3/6. Because we do 1 times 3 is 3, 2 times 3 is 6. 1/2 times 4/4. 1 times 4 is 4, 2 times 4 is 8, so we have 4/8. And all this is in your book on 689. So let's go ahead and do example 3 together. It says, find 4 fractions equal to 1/3 by multiplying 1/3 by 2/2, 3/3, 4/4, and 5/5. So we can find 4 different equivalent fractions to 1/3 by doing this. So we have 1/3 times 2/2. One times 2 is 2. 3 times 2 is 6. So 1/3 is equal to 2/6. Let's continue. 1/3 times 3/3. One times 3 is 3. 3 times 3 is 9. 3/9. So 2/6 and 3/9 are equal to 1/3. We'll keep going. 1/3 times 4/4. 1 times 4 is 4. 3 times 4 is 12. 4/12. And lastly, 1/3 times 5/5. 1 times 5, 5. 3 times 5, 15. So all of these are equal to 1/3. 2/6, 3/9, 4/12, and 5/15 are all equivalent fractions, and they all equal 1/3. So go ahead and do your lesson practice starting on 689, continuing on to 690. That's A through I. And then you'll do your written practice, your independent work. This is lesson 109. So you are doing odd problems. Just odd problems, nothing fancy about it today. Okay? If you have any questions, just let me know.